Integrative medicine is a new field. So when I first began my journey, there was no such thing as integrative medicine. And I think one of the things that really compelled me in this direction was my curiosity about people's stories. And when you ask people their story, you learn a lot of really interesting things. Like they have really good reasons why they smoke cigarettes, or this person is so stressed because they're juggling two or three jobs and they've got two or three kids and they live in a very expensive city and they're really struggling. And then it almost seems completely inappropriate to say, could you eat a healthier diet or, could you, start to meditate or whatever it might be that while you know is beneficial would be a real challenge. So I think the curiosity about what got this human being to the place they are. And the other thing I'd say is I've always had a public health orientation, which for me meant how do you help people live healthier lives? And when I was young and just beginning my journey towards medicine, public health wasn't thinking about that. Now it is more, but back then it was focused on trying to eradicate infectious disease. And so that led me to medical school. And medical school is tough and you learn a lot, but mostly you learn how to treat disease. You don't learn actually how to help people stay healthy, or if they've gotten sick, how to help them reverse an illness and get healthy again. And so I found myself a little out of the mainstream, not really called by what many other people were called by. And so I practiced family medicine for 9 years. I worked at Kaiser Permanente in Northern California. I chose it very deliberately. Kaiser was a health maintenance organization, which is what I was interested in. How do you help people be healthier? And in the early years, I really had a wonderful set of opportunities to take my time with people and help them figure out what might be the roots of the illness. One nice thing about Kaiser is people in that system had full medical care, so they could afford to do the things you were recommending. They had prescription care. At that time, the copay was $1, sometimes $3. So that wasn't really a barrier if you thought they should take something for whatever was going on. But over the years I was there, the what I call treadmill of medicine started to get faster and faster and faster. And I felt that I couldn't practice medicine there anymore. And I had some really interesting opportunities there. I had become the chief of strategic education, which was a blending of what we did with patient education, which Kaiser's very good at, and physician education. And I had become interested in this new field called integrative medicine. And I had developed an employee wellness program, and I had led a re-engineering effort. So I had had very interesting experiences. And yet I just felt that the treadmill of medicine was creating a system that wasn't helping anyone get healthy. And so I decided I would leave. And around that time, Andrew Weil had begun a brand new fellowship program, a 2-year fellowship in integrative medicine. And so even though I didn't really want to go back to school, I was in my late 30s. I had 3 children. We lived in a very lovely place in Northern California, but I uprooted my whole family and we moved to Tucson, Arizona, and I did the fellowship. It almost collapsed while I was there. And in the second year of my fellowship, Andy Weil asked if I would step in and become the first interim director and then the executive director. So that's how I got here. So when I was a fellow, there was essentially one program, a fellowship program. And when I became the director, we have grown this. So now we have many different educational programs. And so I've spent close to 30 years training physicians to practice integrative medicine while still having my own clinical practice and refining the ideas and learning and incorporating, not just things that maybe are thousands of years old, like acupuncture or what we might learn from Ayurveda, but also what about psychedelics? What about these new vagus nerve stimulating devices? What's the role for them? What about all that we're learning about the microbiome and how what we eat changes our microbiome, which affects our weight and our immune system and our metabolism and our mental health. And so incorporating all of these foundational principles into the care, um, the people we train are now of every subspecialty. So I've also had the privilege of learning from oncologists and rheumatologists and surgeons, and I interviewed many of them for the book as well. What's wonderful about writing a book is you can share your knowledge with a much larger group of people. And I discovered that with my first book. I'd get emails from people and say, I couldn't get pregnant. And then I read your book, which was called Be Fruitful, The Essential Guide to Maximizing Fertility and Giving Birth to a Healthy Child. And now I have 2 children. That is so satisfying. I mean, it's just really, you really feel like you're making a difference on the planet. So for this book, I want to say the book kind of drives on 2 paths. One are the larger themes of, yes, there are things you can do, even if you've been told you have diabetes or heart disease, to reverse these illnesses. And you have to want to, you have to not just say, okay, I'll take that drug, and now I'll take another drug. Now I'm on my 3rd drug. You have to say, is there another way where I could actually get rid of this? And so there's all of these principles of ways in which you might change your life. But then I'm a pragmatist. There's a lot of, as you said, very specific things. So you asked about anxiety. As an example, there's a chapter on anxiety. In conventional medicine, we usually treat anxiety with one of 2 classes of medicines. One is called benzodiazepines. Most people know these medicines. They're called Ativan, Xanax, Valium, Klonopin, and they absolutely work to get rid of your anxiety acutely. If you're in the hospital and you're going to have surgery, someone's going to put an IV in you and give you one of these medicines because they don't want you going into surgery very anxious. Your heart rate will go up, your blood vessels will constrict. They want you to be in a more relaxed state. So potent medicines. The problem with them is that over time, that potency wears off, and yet you're still dependent on them. That's a lose-lose. They're not working, but it's very hard to get off of them. The other class of medicines we use are called SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And what those do is they raise the level of serotonin. They're antidepressants, but they have this effect as well for anxiety. Now, these are safer to use from the perspective of you don't get addicted, you don't have the same dependence, but they have bad side effects. They make people gain weight. Nobody wants to gain weight. They affect your sexual function. They cause something called anorgasmia, which means difficulty achieving an orgasm. Nobody wants that. So they're not wonderful medicines, and they also can be hard to get off of. You have to wean off very slowly in many cases. So what do we do in integrative medicine? Well, we have this huge array of strategies that allow us to not jump to the medicines first. For example, we have breath work. Breath work is free. You don't have to go to a doctor. You can learn it on an app. You can learn it in a yoga class. There's many different kinds of breath work. The square breathing, 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4, and repeat a few times. There are 4-7-8 breath, which extends the exhalation. So there's wonderful different forms of breath work. There's practices like yoga, which often help people quiet and center. That may cost you a little money for a class, but not terribly expensive. You could also do it online if you don't want to go and be in a yoga class. There are supplements. There are a lot of very useful supplements like L-theanine, which comes from green tea. It is available over the counter. It works for many people. It's not sedating. Doesn't cause dependency. So, that can be a strategy. You can get a tea like kava tea, and that's in the tea form very mild. There's a stronger form if you get the extract. There's a extract of lavender that's called Selexin. Again, it's a capsule. You take it. It helps with anxiety. And then there's physical things. Like for me, if I go for a fast walk, that often relieves a lot of my anxious feelings. But, if I'm trying to go to bed at night, I can't go for that fast walk. Or if I'm about to take an exam and I'm anxious, well, a walk is not available to me. So it's good to have different strategies depending on what it is that makes you anxious. I think I've just said like six different things, but I in the book I think I talk about 20 or more. There are many different things. It's good to have more than one, and it's also good to practice whatever resonates for you so that your nervous system entrains to it and learns how to quiet itself more easily.